You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mighty Blue podcast. If everything has gone as I planned it, you should be listening to this anytime after 3 a.m. on Thursday, October the 23rd. We're still away and expect to be somewhere in Maine as you listen, or maybe thinking about getting back on the road to return to Florida. We're really looking forward to this break, so my time at the Alder Gathering has set us up perfectly for this launch up the East Coast. I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave the thank yous out this week as I'm recording this episode on October the 7th, and I read my thank yous out on episode 510, which I recorded about 20 minutes ago. When I get back, we'll have a good catch up with those thank yous. With a bit of luck, episode 511 should have been last week, which will be my Alder Gathering live podcast. I must admit, I'm a bit nervous about doing the show in front of a whole lot of people, but stepping outside your comfort zone isn't a bad thing for anybody. And for me, actually, I'll be 73 at the end of the month, I'm definitely going to be outside my comfort zone. So, as I'm away, there's nothing else but me, my microphone and my guest today. And that guest is James Dalberto, or Nomad. And a nomad he certainly is. James is a free spirit who completed his thru-hike at the end of August this year, and he told me a few things about his hike that made me think. I'll talk about that on the other side, but let's get on now and meet James Dalberto, or Nomad. Our guest today is James Dalberto, or Nomad. Hey James, thanks for coming to the podcast.
Hey Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You are 37 years old, I believe it is, you said. And
yes, 37.
You've been living, it's fair to say, a somewhat nomadic life for the past 6 or 7 years now. And at your age, that is the kind of an unusual path to take, you know, your mid-30s when you're building your normal career up and so on. So what led you into the life that you're leading now? And tell us what the life's like.
So I guess first of all, the life is amazing. It's very rewarding, challenging. It actually has a lot of similarities to long distance traveling on the trail.
Interesting.
So I guess what got me into it was, I don't know, maybe over a decade ago now. I was doing a lot of just tenting and car camping and stuff like that, and kind of extending my trips to be a little longer. Sure. And going out of a Jeep for a while and then switching to a Jeep and a tent and all these different methods to get out there. And finally, at one point, I took a 3-month trip and I went out through North Carolina and up the Blue Ridge Parkway and Skyline Drive and Shenandoah and all that. And just a beautiful trip. And the last day, I met who's now my best friend, another full-time traveler and a camper. And we got talking, and it just spurred that thought in my mind of, I could do that. I could just get a camper and just do this all the time. They talked to me about how their mobile income works and all that. It took a couple of years.
How were they making their living then at that stage?
So they were doing at the time vintage resale, finding stuff at different like thrift shops and, reselling shops and stuff, and then going online and reselling. But since then, they've shifted more towards artistic creativity and creating assemblage pieces.
And when we spoke the other day, you said that you were doing all sorts of different work to maintain this lifestyle, but you felt disposable, which is a horrible expression. Tell us, because you didn't get into a career at all, or I mean, what was the pattern of your life in your 20s leading up to your 30s then?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was in any specific career for long term. I did work the food industry a fair bit through a few different businesses. Then I did my own like landscaping and stuff for a while in between that and my current business. But at the time when I was working with the food industry and I did like pager tech support for a while, survey work and all this, and it just felt very much so like it didn't matter how good of an employee you were. Sure. If anything changed or a new manager came or whatever, they would just get rid of you in a second, and suddenly you're scrambling for a job, Sure. So I felt very disposable and just wanted to get away from, working underneath someone else, I guess.
I can hear, I can see that and hear that tone in your voice that, how annoying that must be to feel that way about it, But now I'm retired. Yeah. I don't feel the least bit disposable. I feel fine because I'm retired. Yeah.
I feel free, right?
And you had your hobby at the time was painting, but you turned that into a small business. How did you build that business?
So I started with just starting to do more painting and posting it on Facebook and stuff more, and eventually started getting some people that were interested in purchasing paintings and different works that I was doing. So that led to me just diving even deeper into that, creating a business web page and storefront online, and then pursuing like flea markets and farmers markets and things like that wherever I was to set up at and go ahead and do in-person sales. And it all snowballed from there.
So you were very mobile then, obviously, but you lived in your van or your car. What were you actually living in? Was it a van?
So before, currently it's a Class C camper, and that's what I've been traveling in for pretty much the whole time. But I was doing tenting out of a Jeep, living in a 2-bedroom or a double wide trailer out on a section of farmland. And then at one point I decided to move everything I owned out of the trailer. I got rid of probably half of the stuff I owned and got into the camper and traveled from there.
That's so, I've got to say, that's such a cool thing to do anyway. So you find these flea markets and farmers markets. So did you go all over the country, or was that something that you stayed local?
No, I definitely went all over the country, all the way. I haven't hit every state yet, but I went all the way out to Southern California, nice. From the Gulf of Mexico up to the Great Lakes and all that, all over the East Coast. So it's been pretty widespread through the United States, and I've set up all over the country and had pretty good sales for the most part for in-person sales. And you do your drawings or your paintings about nature generally? Yeah, so generally my primary medium is acrylic paint, and I enjoy doing anything nature inspired. So recently it's been Appalachian Trail inspired. Of course it is. I should imagine you got a lot of stuff from the AT this year. I want to talk about that in a minute. Absolutely. You told me you were doing pretty well. You were making a pretty good living and so on until COVID. Yeah. So exactly. So why do you think that changed around so much? I know the world changed for everybody with COVID. So it was partly that for that first year of COVID or so, they pretty much had all the flea markets and farmers markets shut down. They weren't operating because you couldn't really successfully social distance at the time, they felt. So there was a big hit in that sense. And then when the inflation hit about a couple of years later, that really took a hit on the online aspect of it as well. Just I think people are a little tighter on their funds these days. Sure. Yeah, well, not we all. And yeah, exactly. Yeah. And at this point, when COVID hit, you said you'd done a lot of car camping. Were you actually a hiker? Were you a backpacker at that stage? Yeah, I did a lot of day hiking back at that time, and some short backpacking trips, overnights, couple nights, stuff like that. And as I transitioned into the road life with the camper, it became longer and further and more, with each trip. So did you know about the Appalachian Trail, or was this something that kind of drifted into your mind? I don't know what it is. We sort of hear about it somehow, don't we? How did you first hear about the trail? Or was that part of your life already? So I think it was shortly before I got on the road when I moved to North Carolina. I was already interested in hiking and backpacking and such. And of course, North Carolina has some beautiful opportunities for that. Sure. So I ended up going out west to the Smoky Mountains National Park and Pisgah National Forest, areas around the AT and on the AT, and it was introduced to it in that way. So at that time then, because you were trying to run a business, which you, as you say, wasn't doing quite as well, did the idea of a thru-hike start coming to you at that stage, or when did that really hit you? I'd say it was more of just this dream in my head at that time that for whatever reason, I allowed myself to convince myself that I couldn't do it. And I would tell anyone who tells themselves that you can do it. So hang on. Before we go past that, why did you think at the time you couldn't do it? I'm not even sure really. Now looking back, at the time, I guess maybe I just thought it was physically just too much, too long, too far. It is. But when it's a long way. It's very difficult. Yeah. But I don't think I was looking at all the aspects of it and some of the experiences and what you get out of the trail in doing so. Well,
Funnily enough, I watched one of your video through your Facebook page this morning. You know, the thing you do actually it moves way too fast for my brain, by the way, all those pictures going through.
It's pretty
but there's
fast.
some beautiful pictures there. Slow it down a bit. Actually, I did slow it down. I put it on half speed, and it was much better for me that way, but with no music, because the music sounded terrible when it was half speed. And funnily enough, you did actually go to do some trail magic, I believe it was, at Dismal Falls. And I actually spent this last weekend at Dismal Falls.
Oh, such a beautiful spot.
Well, I went and camped there. I went and camped there on Thursday night with my girlfriend. We walked from Weary Feet to Dismal Falls, camped there, and then walked back the next morning. And it's a lovely little spot there. But you said you met community last year. You were doing some trail magic there. So tell us about those. Were you there for a few days or what?
I was there for a little over a week.
Wow.
So there's a campground right near there called Walnut Flats Campground.
Right.
And I was parked up there with my camper, and that's just a short road walk to get down to Dismal Falls from there.
Right.
So I was hitting the AT at the time and just hiking and all that, and I was running into some thru-hikers, realizing that there's quite a few coming through at the time. So I was like, heck, I'll go down to the Trent's Grocery down there, and I'll pick up some snacks and drinks and whatnot and bring it up to the falls. So I was doing that for just a couple of days, and then I ran into 3 other women who had done thru hikes previously, who were out at Walnut Flats Campground doing the same thing. So we teamed up, and it was another 4 or 5 days after that, so almost a week of doing trail magic for thru hikers, and we must have had about 100 of them come through, and just all fantastic people, really a great experience.
And it was that moment. Oh, by the way, before I say that bit, going to Trent's Grocery for a starving artist, as you described yourself to me yesterday, that's a very generous thing to do, by the way. So thank you for doing that for people. But when you met that community, was that when the serious thought of doing the AT took hold? Because that was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was last year, late spring, early summer. And just meeting the community and getting to know these people that just all seem so happy, and rather dirty, and a little run down from the trail, but happy.
Shocker. And,
just very open, kind, generous people. And that's what made me really tip the scales from, doing my Appalachian Trail thru hike this year. So,
I mean, people often say it's the people that brings them there, but you actually discovered the people when you were doing trail magic last year. So you knew you'd be going into a community which were accepting and were friendly and kind. But hiking the AT ain't cheap, is it? How did you raise the money you need to get the gear and basically live for 6 months on trail? Because, as you say, if the business hadn't been going so well, that's really quite a lot of surplus money to be going, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I had to really work hard last year. So once I figured out that I was looking to do the trail, that was by the time summer was coming in. I ended up, because I wasn't really getting any sales on my artwork at the time, finding as much manual labor as I possibly could. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. I worked as a mechanic, a deck repair and work, paint work, festival work, all sorts of stuff last year to build up not only the roughly $2,000 or so it took for the gear, but then money for the trail itself.
You spent $2,000 on gear, so you really didn't have much of it anyway then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I had gear, but none of it was really specialized backpacking gear. It was more making it work backpacking gear. So
you effectively started from scratch, got $2,000 worth of stuff. Were you happy with the stuff you got? Did it all work out?
For the most part, yeah. There was a few gear failures along the way. In fact, the first month was the majority of it. I had my sleeping pad, my pants, and my camp stove all fail within that first month on trail. And they'd all been tested previously on trail and everything, and still failed. But that's the AT for you. You never know what it's going to throw at you.
Yeah, so it's more than $2,000 in that case for gear.
Yeah.
Kind of what? So did you tent or hammock?
I tented.
And what tent did you use?
I used the Big Agnes Copper Spur Ultralight 2,
very
and
popular.
I very much enjoyed it. Yeah, for its space and features and all that, I really enjoyed it.
So you said you'd already tested the stuff out. I presume that included some physical preparation. I mean, you're a young man, so it's probably a bit easier for a young man to do this. How did you prepare physically?
So I'd say it was probably about the 4 months or so before I got on trail, mostly over the winter. I believe starting in November was the biggest section was 100 miles from Dix Creek Gap to Fontana Dam. And then I did some hiking in Uinta National Forest, Florida, Mississippi, kind of all over, just trying to get out there as much as possible to prepare. And it really helped getting on trail.
I'm sure, because for me, I'd stop every 10 yards when I started to gasp and lean on my poles, leaning forward, sort of screaming at myself, saying, "What are you thinking of doing this sort of thing?" And I mentioned the other day, I'm thinking about going. If I'm going to go next year as well, I'm thinking about my start date right now. How did you decide on when to go? Was it a case of you sorted a few things out and here I go?
Kind of, yeah. Originally, I believe my date I was aiming for was March 20th. And then I moved it up to March 15th, thinking that would be a little bit better just based on where the bubble would be and the weather and all that. And then when it came closer to the time to hit the trail, I was realizing like I had everything ready to go well ahead of time. And I started getting kind of antsy. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it on the 6th instead. Yeah.
So how are those?
Kind of got moved up a couple of times. But
how are those early miles then? Were they good for you, or did you feel prepared?
Yeah, I felt pretty prepared. And I, ran a lot of different test hikes and stuff. So that definitely helped with my confidence. And then I think partly it was just, I was so excited and nervous and just like kind of ready to hit the trail that for that first couple of weeks, I don't think I noticed, the strain and stuff quite as much, just from the sense that my adrenaline was up and I was going. I was finally on the trail.
Yeah, the adrenaline lasted about 5 yards for me. The rest of it was just gasping all about. Did you do the approach trail or not?
I did, yeah. I started out at Amicalola. It was a lot of stairs, I'll give it that, but it was absolutely beautiful. The falls were stunning. And then even the miles between to get to Springer were challenging, very challenging, but beautiful. So, and
maybe I wrote this down wrong, but I know you have a dog. Was there a consideration for your dog to join you out there, or was that never a thought?
No, I wanted her to so badly because she does hike with me pretty regularly, and she's done some pretty tough trails and such. But I felt that with the length and duration in some of the sections on the AT, that it was a little more prudent safety-wise and logistics-wise to leave her with my grandparents while I was gone. So she stayed here and got spoiled, and I went and hit the trail.
Yeah, you got ruined. The dog got spoiled and you got ruined, because you're now ruined by the Appalachian Trail for the rest of your life. You know that, don't you?
I'm pretty sure I can feel my knees and ankles, so...
No, I remember it well. And given that you earn your living online quite a lot, were you able to keep going with it while you're away? Or because I think, once again, my notes weren't quite clear on this. Did you put it on hold, or what did you do?
I did. Yeah, I put the shop on vacation mode for while I was gone. I just didn't find it feasible, given that I can't bring my inventory with my items I'm selling, to try to do much on trail. So I decided I wanted to just put everything, my entire life on hold, and get out there and just be on trail. And that's what I wanted to be worried about or, into, was the trail itself, nothing else.
Sure. Do you know what? I think that's a good choice. And I say that as somebody who podcasted my entire hike in 2019, and I intend to do it again in 2026. But it's quite a commitment to do stuff other than hiking, because I know for me, when I get into camp, I'm exhausted at the end of every day. So I'm going to try to do a bit of recording while I'm walking through the day, hopefully to ease the pain a little bit, while I'm going. So was it a good feeling to put everything aside, because you committed the money, you knew where you were going, this excitement was there, the adrenaline was there. Were you feeling good about it, or were you a bit concerned about what might happen going forward?
I think there was some concern there, just because you never know what's going to happen, whether it be injury or animal incident or whatever. There's a lot that can happen on the AT. So I think it would be foolhardy to go into it with no worries, so to speak. No. But at the same time, I was just so excited. And by the time I hit the trail, I was so happy to just be out there and knowing that I'm actually doing it, that I kept going.
There is that moment, you step on trail, you start walking, and all the fluff has gone away, all the stuff behind you has gone away, and it's just you and your body walking up a trail and that. And it's a great moment. I think it's a great moment when that happens. What were you hoping to, I don't know how much you knew about the AT before, what were you hoping to find out there?
I guess I was trying to immerse myself as much as I could in the community of the AT, in the social aspect that goes along with the through hike, the camaraderie, and just that sense of everyone out there kind of trying to accomplish the impossible. So that was the main reason, but I also do have a very deep love of nature and, just getting out and being out there in natural places and settings. So.
And everybody says it's the people. Did you find the community you were looking for? Was it because I know it was a community that attracted you at Dismal Falls the year before? Was that what you found out there?
I did find community out there. It was different than I expected in the sense that I had heard of people forming tramlies and all that. And I did have groups that I traveled with for periods, but I never really truly had a tramlie, I would say. But I did meet many, many people along the way and had amazing interactions and people that I have a bond with now that'll last the rest of my life.
Did you want a tramlie? Did you want to be part of a tramlie or not? I mean, because some people
when I started,
follow along to try to be part of a tramlie, but it always means to me that you're compromising your own hike in some way.
Exactly. I had so many people tell me to hike my own hike, and I'm very grateful that in the end I did hike my own hike because I had a couple groups that I would normally speed up with to try to keep up and, stay with them for a while. And every time after a couple of weeks, it just felt like I was rushing things and I was going faster than I personally wanted to go. So I'm glad that I made the decision during those times to say, you guys go ahead. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to take it a little slower.
I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you did that.
And I'm grateful I did.
Yeah. And I noticed a bit later on in your hike in that video, you actually stayed by one of the lakes. Was it in Maine or New Hampshire as a zero on trail, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was Rainbow Lake, the Rainbow Lake Dam in the 100-mile wilderness. And that was a beautiful spot to do the double zero there, with the beautiful view. And I was pretty much just myself the entire time there. So
what did you do? Just sit around all day sleeping?
So swam a lot, definitely swam a lot.
You did a lot of swimming, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first day I went in twice, and the second day I went in 5 times, and just swam in that lake a lot with the view of Katahdin back there, and just kind of soaked in that feeling of how close Mama Kay was really getting, and trying to, I guess, allow that realization to solidify in my mind.
And am I right in thinking, and I may have this slightly wrong because I scribble my notes all the time, that the van that you've been living in for those past 6 years pretty much died shortly before you went away?
Yeah, so my last rig was
convenient.
A 26-foot. Yeah. I mean, good timing in a sense. But it was a 26-foot Class C, and I traveled about 6 years in it and repaired it extensively over those years. And finally, 2 weeks before trail, it finally broke down for good to where I would have to have it towed to a shop and this and that. And I said, that's the last straw, and moved everything out into storage very quickly and prepared for the trail.
Do you know what? That's the trail provides, mate. I tell you, 2 weeks before you go. And then obviously you've come back to another one, which you obviously, I presume, did you sort that out before you came back?
Yeah. So I had that delivered in May, and it's actually a very nice upgrade compared to my last camper. So much like the trail, I think that things that can seem very negative at the time can turn out to be blessings in disguise and put you where you need to be.
Quite right too, by the way. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate that as an insight on the trail. And I asked you about your highlights the other day. You said that Maine was your favourite state, and I think it's actually mine. Why was it your favourite state?
I mean, partly just the raw beauty. I mean, you look around Maine and it is just stunningly beautiful everywhere. And then the terrain was a little bit more manageable. There were some climbs and all that, but there's a lot of more reasonable stuff as well. And I think at that point I was getting so close that my spirits were up, and right at the Maine border, I actually had an injury. So coming back from that, it really became like the final drive, the final stretch of it.
I'm sure. I'm going to talk about your injuries in a minute because it wasn't quite as easy as it seems to have been so far. And you, of course, on the trail itself, on the AT itself, you went back to Dismal Falls, of course, and you did more trail magic. You just can't get out the habit of doing trail magic. For those who don't know, describe what it's like at Dismal Falls, because we've rarely talked about Dismal Falls on this show. So tell us what it's like.
So yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful area. It is a bit of a spur trail. I think it's somewhere between a third of a mile or a half a mile spur trail off the AT to get down there. But then there's some pretty
Yep.
nice camping spots along the little trail as you get closer to the falls where you can hear the water and all that. And then you pop out on this rocky peninsula, so to speak, or a little cliff. And the falls, when I was there at least, were roaring over the side of this and big, deep pool underneath. And we were, because of the water being high enough at the time, we were jumping off the waterfall and we were just having a
Nice.
blast out there.
How cool. But you did try it again.
Yeah. So I was doing a 00 there actually. It was my first 00 of the trail. And I decided that the 10 would be just rest and relaxation. And 10, I did the same thing. I had my camp set up. So I took my empty pack down to Trent's and I actually managed to fit a 30-pack of beer, a 15-pack of Coca-Cola, and like 6 things of cookies and a bunch of chips all in my pack and hiked it back. And put a sign up at the trail junction. And yeah, we had a handful of people come down and appreciate the trail magic.
So you've said now you twice did 00s. Why a 00? I never did a 00 ever. Not well, I did accidentally because wasn't well. But so you deliberately did 00, a couple of 00. Why was that?
Especially in very beautiful areas. I just wanted to be able to take some time sometimes to just kick back and enjoy it and just really take it in and not worry about getting ready for the next day hiking or whatever. I feel like single 0 can definitely give you some rest and recovery, but you're still very much so in that hiking mode. Whereas a 00, I would found beneficial for one of those days at least to be where you're kind of not a hiker for that day. It's kind of like you just went to the lake.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love the idea. But by the way, I don't knock that at all. But as you mentioned, you referred to obliquely earlier, you said we knew it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows because you had a few injuries and you even took 8 days off trail at one point. Talk us through those injuries. What happened to you?
So the 3 primary injuries, apart from all the scrapes and bruises and whatever from along the way, were first I got what was basically the start of trench foot in Virginia, right before Harper's Ferry, or Pennsylvania, that would have been. But I had about 3 days of heavy rain where the trail turned into a stream. I couldn't keep my feet dry. And then I hit the roller coaster and it just worked my feet so much after being wet that it took a lot of skin off my feet. And it was pretty gruesome. I'll leave it at that, I guess. But that took.
I don't even know what. Hang on, I don't even know what trench foot is. What is? 'Cause I seem to remember that was one of the injuries they used to get in the First World War in the trenches. So what actually is it?
Very similar with where your feet are wet for days at a time and you can't get them to dry out. It's just like the skin starts to, more or less, not to be too graphic, but starts to rot away. It starts to fall off.
Oh.
And you can have like little holes forming in the side of your feet because of the bacteria that's able to thrive in that wet condition.
So how do you treat that? You just have to stop and take your shoes off for a few days?
You got to dry out and keep them dry. Yeah. So I took three 0s altogether, 2 off trail and 1 on trail, to get my feet dried out and keep them dried in some rain that came after. And then it thankfully dried up afterwards for the weather. And I was able to continue hiking without my feet getting wet, and they healed along the way.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't know. Yeah, because boots are tough to wear, or shoes are tough to wear anyway, because you're beating your feet up the whole time. To have lost some skin as well must have been really tough. But then the other one was that took you off for 8 days was a shoulder injury. Was that a fall or what?
Yeah, so I took a pretty good fall, less than 1/10 of a mile before the main border. I was going down some really steep rock and holding onto a tree with my right arm, and my feet slipped out from under me with the rock, and it not only yanked my arm far back behind my shoulder, but then slammed my whole side of my face and my chest into the tree, more or less body slammed the tree. And over the next couple of days, I started getting very sharp shooting pain in the back of my shoulder, and it worsened and worsened. And maybe not too smartly, I tried to push on regardless. And I remember one day in particular, I had 12 miles that became the most miserable 12 miles of my entire hike. Because every single step hurt, every movement, every turn, every twist just flared up this sharp, very severe pain in my shoulder. So I had to make the call right around Stratton area, Rangeley and Stratton, to get off. And I ended up at the main roadhouse, and it took a total of 8 days before it started going away enough where I felt comfortable to get back on trail.
What'd you do? Did you go to urgent care, and did anybody diagnose it at all, or did you just let it rest up?
So I'm very thankful to say, and I apologize, my connection may be dropping out a little bit here, but I'm very grateful to say that there were some trail angels that were able to get me a ride all the way. It was about almost an hour drive to, oh man, I can't think of the name of the town now. But there wasn't any kind of a hospital with imaging where I was or near where I was. I was closer to the Canadian border than I was to an X-ray machine. So thankfully, some trail angels got me out there and back, and they ended up doing X-rays and found that nothing was broken. Didn't feel that an MRI was really needed at that time, and so I never really got a full diagnosis necessarily, but that would be my assumption. It was probably a pinched nerve in the shoulder.
And of course, you then got onto Katahdin, and you managed to go up Katahdin in a decent weather by the looks of things from your pictures. What was that day like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the night before at Birch's was fantastic. Ranger Pete gave us his talk about finishing well, and among other things, and I really enjoyed that. He gave a very good speech. And we had a lot of good camaraderie that night. So the next morning we woke up and we're all kind of chatting and getting excited. And a funny side note, I go to put my shoes on and I pull the tongue of the shoe, and the entire tongue of my shoe rips out of my shoe. So I had to stuff it under the laces and lace it back down on the shoe. I said, I'm glad it's my last day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we all kind of set out similar time and started up the mountain and kind of leapfrogged back and forth with some people along the way. And then as we got up closer to the top, there's 4 of us that wound up more or less summiting together.
Nice.
And a couple others behind and ahead. But I can say that not a single thru hiker that was up there had dry eyes. We were all shedding tears. It was a very emotional, very deep moment, to finally be up there, and just even to see the sign from a distance, I was already shedding tears.
Yeah, I get the hairs on the back of my neck go up when I think about it, even when people talk about it as well. But I know that a lot of people don't feel that. They feel a bit flat that it's over. How did you feel that it was over? Were you glad it was over?
Physically, I was. Physically, I was ready to be done hiking. Right. My body really needed a break, sure. A very long break. But as far as mentally and the social aspect of it, I'd say I was still willing to be out there, and to be around those wonderful people that were hiking the trail, sure. And experiencing those things. And just, I love being out in the woods, the peace that comes with it. So I'd say I was ready to stay out there if it weren't for feeling so broken physically.
You could have turned around and gone do a southbound today, couldn't you?
It's tempting.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah. They say once you've done it, you've proved hiking south is within walking distance.
So. And you told me that you pretty much burned through all of your savings. Was it worth it?
Yes, absolutely. I would do it again, in the sense of trading that monetary value for the experiences and the people I've met on the trail. I would have paid more, honestly.
Cool. Oh, cool. It's great to have no regrets about that, because I know money is important in this world, but the experience you've just had is even more important. And I know that you've only been home for about a month now, because you finished on was it 23rd of August?
The 26th.
26th of August, okay, less than a month then. Have you thought about why the AT is so magical? Obviously, it's the people as well, but what is it about the AT that really seems to get that feeling, to give that feeling to people?
I think it's partly your feeling of self-sufficiency and your confidence soaring as you hike the trail. I think a lot of people experience that increasing self-confidence in being able to get yourself up the trail and keep on keeping on, But then also I think it's not just the people, but the camaraderie that goes with that there are so many out there that are trying to accomplish this seemingly impossible feat. And you're kind of all in it together, and I think that all makes it very special. Yeah,
it becomes more possible the nearer you get to the end, though, doesn't it? You suddenly think to yourself after about 1,500 miles, you know what, I might do this. It's possible I'm going to get it done. And I'd imagine that the trip has given you all sorts of ideas for your art going forward. Do you think you might go in a slightly different direction of an AT themed section in your shop?
Definitely, yeah. I've got a lot of stuff planned, some photographs that I plan on painting, as well as some stuff just kind of off the top of my head, some jewelry pieces,
Nice.
A lot of different things that I thought about on trail or since trail. And I think that the AT is going to continue to be a pretty prominent inspiration in my work going forward.
Well, maybe you can give me some trail magic at Dismal Falls next year.
I would love to, yeah. So that's my plan is next year I'm probably traveling north with the AT in my camper and trying to do some trail magic for the hikers and get back into that community again.
So what is next for you? You going to do another long hike, or is this your one long hike?
As far as like this kind of distance, the Triple Crown trails, for instance, at the moment, I'd say I think it's probably my last time doing a hike of this magnitude, but I'm still very much so into backpacking and getting out there for days or maybe even weeks at a time. Sure. I think the next one I'm looking at is the Foothills Trail in South Carolina.
Nice. Well, look, I appreciate you. We've got over some technical glitches today, but we seem to have been able to do it. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us, and I wish you well in the future. And maybe, we'll see you out there next year at Dismal Falls.
Yeah, I sure hope so, Mighty Blue. And thank you so much for having me on. And I hope you have a nice day.
Thanks, man. Take it easy, okay?
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. I love that he referred to himself as a starving artist, yet still managed to do trail magic not only last year, but also while he was on his own hike this year. Serving his fellow hikers out of the goodness of his heart is so emblematic of the trail that I know, and certainly one I want to explore next year on my own thru-hike. Meeting the community, either on trail or in town, is something I'm definitely going for next year. So if you have a hiking club or even just a bunch of friends you'd like me to talk to about the trail, let me know and we'll try to make it happen. And the thing that struck me about James's hike was that he didn't seem to be in any hurry, even taking several double zeros. The way he talked about it made so much sense to me, mainly because I'd never considered double zero, feeling almost guilty when I took a zero. I mean, I wasn't on a deadline really, yet I always felt the need to get it done with as soon as possible. Next year, well, I don't intend to swan about it all the time. I hope I'm able to take the odd double zero and recharge my, what are likely to be, very depleted batteries. James was inspired by the AT, and as he said, he's had a close-up view of the beauty out there, so I would not be at all surprised if he starts knocking out some AT-inspired pieces before too long. I'll add the link to his Etsy store to the show notes, as well as his 2 Facebook pages, and you can check out his work there. So, we're done for. Another preloaded episode. I hope by now that you will have heard what will be last week's show from Alder, and I hope it went okay. If it didn't, then I'm sorry. If it did, you're welcome. I'll see you next week.